Good morning, and let me share with you something interesting. Exodus 15:26. And he said, If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, will do that which is right in his eyes, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have put upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. Now you read this, and I'm sure we're hearing a lot of quotes from this verse. Probably every preacher, every Sunday, if they're going to have a church service, will probably be, I think very few preachers won't quote this verse. That if you do what's right in the eyes of the Lord, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, God will not put this disease, the coronavirus, on you. Is that what it really says? In a way, yes. But, I was reading in the Talmud where it really stressed the point that the diseases, because somebody years ago wrote a book, None of These Diseases, and they showed how following the dietary laws of God, it would avoid many diseases, cancer and so forth. And that's true. We know that. Eating pork, which isn't properly cared for as we do today, could cause a lot of different diseases. And so they weren't allowed to eat the meat of a pig. And they followed very strict dietary laws, washing their hands and dishes after every meal. In fact, during the Middle Ages, when the plague hit, wiped out most, 1/4 of Europe died from the plague. But the ones who weren't affected were the Jews, because they followed proper dietary and sanitary laws according to the law of God. This was before they understood anything about microbes. And so why are we washing our hands? Why are we washing the dishes? Well, because that's the command of God, so let's do it. And it protected them from, they were the only ones who, their Jews lived in a separate area. They didn't, associate with the other, they weren't allowed to associate with the other community. And so they didn't get hit by the bubonic plague. And so, as typical, they got blamed for it. So look at those Jews, they're not suffering. The reason they're not is because they're the ones who brought this on us. It's their fault. And this was 100 years, close to less than 100 years before the Reformation, Protestant Reformation. And historians tell us that possibly this was one of the greatest causes of the Reformation, is because people immediately turned to the church when this plague hit. And the church sent out their prayer teams and groups, and they did everything they could, and they weren't able to stop the plague. People depended on the church to stop it. They were told by their priests that God was in control and God would take care of them. Well, apparently God didn't. And so a lot of people lost their faith in the church, and this helped set the groundwork and the foundation for 100 years later when Martin Luther came along and brought about the Reformation, because by this time people had lost a lot of confidence in the church, a lot of faith in the church. And, what's happening today, I just read where a number of churches are canceling their services. They're going to online streaming. So they have to. Like in Illinois here, the governor declared we can't have groups of more than 1,000 getting together. So some of our mega churches, they have to do something. They have to reduce the size of, only a certain number can come in, or not have services at all, just live stream their services. And I'm not blaming the church for doing that. I think, that's really, let's take proper precautions. But what about this? Why can't we just all go to church and, if we do what's right, and going to church is supposed to be what's right, and we follow the laws of God, we should be protected by the coronavirus, right? According to this verse in Exodus 15:26. Well, I think there's something a little more to that verse. I started looking at this word. Well, for one, which I put on the Egyptians. And the word put is a sem in Hebrew. And a sem really means enable. I mean, it's all set to go, and all God has to do is lift his hand of protection. And once he's lifted his hand of protection, it all breaks loose. The only thing that's keeping us right now is God's hand of protection upon us. And of course, God can't abide by sin. And if he can't abide near sin, how can he protect us? So yeah, it does make sense that God can protect us from these diseases, from the coronavirus. If we do what's right and follow him, our lives are remain pure before him, he can cover us with his hand of protection. That fits too, but there's something even more specific. I looked up this word. Well, I was really researching this word, disease, and looking through the various Semitic languages. The word is makala, and it's strange that there's a mem in front. Well, it's ha-makala. There's an article, and then there's a preposition, the from, disease, sickness, illness, weakness. Kala is the word's root word. But there's, looking at it in the Akkadian language, in the Phoenician, Sumerian, there's something else. It's representative of wearing amulet around your neck to ward off diseases. Actually, was done to ward off the fear of diseases. And fear is probably one of the greatest reasons this may spread. Well, it may be contained too. It's fear that's, causing all the quarantine and everything. But the point is, doctors will tell you that fear, as any strong emotion, will weaken your immune system. And if you're filled with fear, your immune system is weakened. And if your immune system is weakened, you're a target for viruses, as the coronavirus. And so in a way, we're almost playing into it by allowing fear to spread. I mean, people are really terrorized by this thing. I read the other day where somebody sneezed on a plane, and the plane turned around and went back because people were afraid. Maybe this person had the coronavirus. And, people are afraid now to go out, and our economy is really beginning to suffer. People don't want to go to stores. They don't want to go to movies. They don't want to go buy cars or, step out anywhere. They're just going to hole up in their homes until this thing passes, which it will. All plagues pass. Just give it a couple months. It's going to reach a peak, and then it'll die down. That's the history of plagues. We've had the same thing with SARS and bird flu. The worst was in 1918, and the reason that spread was because they ignored the warnings. They went ahead and had their parades right around the time into World War I. They were celebrating, and they all got together. Crowds got together, and as soon as they did, man, the crazy flu just spread. So I don't condemn at all what governments in quarantine and avoiding crowds and driving my disability bus. They gave me some disinfectant and rags, and twice a day I got to clean the bus out, sanitize it. Hey, I'm all for it. I'll do it. Let's do everything we can. Sort of like the story that in World War I, where they were under attack from bombs and everybody huddled in their trenches, and then the Padre was standing up there just watching the explosions going on, and one of the soldiers says, Padre, you better get into the trench here, you get killed. The Lord will protect me. So I said, the Lord will protect me too, but I'd like to make his job a little easier. Yeah, the Lord will protect us from the coronavirus. Let's make his job a little easier. He expects us to use common sense. But let me get back to this word, kala, disease. Because buried in that, there is a play on words. I was really confused with the idea of that mim in front of it. Why the mim? And it appears there's a play on words. These extra letters are sometimes added to create a play on words, and I think the play on word is bakad. There's two words in Hebrew for fear. There's yara. That's the word that's used with God for fear. Fear the Lord. It doesn't mean be afraid of God. That word fear is, it's a fear of offending someone, a fear of wounding or breaking someone's heart. It's not a fear for your own gizzard. That word is bakad. And I find that maybe this word Allah, kala, is a play on that word bakad. And looking at this word in the various Semitic languages, I think what God is really saying isn't so much that he will protect us from all these diseases, but that he'll protect us from the fear of these diseases. If you do what's right, if you follow the laws of God, he will protect you from the fear. And I don't discredit the idea that he will protect you from the disease, but yet Christians will get sick just like anyone else. Statistically, that's why churches are canceling their services. If they were taking this verse literally, let's all get to church, let's all go because God will protect us. I think that's foolishness. I think that's abusing what this verse is saying. What this verse is saying is draw close to God. Draw very close to him and let his love, his passion overwhelm you and take all that fear out of you, because that's what happens when you do. All that fear is removed. And when you're not afraid, well, your immune system doesn't shrink. Now, I'm, up at that age where I'm, one of the more vulnerable ones. So if anybody should be afraid of this thing, I should. But, as I draw close to God, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of not getting it, but just, I'm resting in God. And whatever happens, happens. If he takes me home because of it, hey, that's great. If not, okay, I'm going to hang around and continue writing books and doing what he wants me to do. I'm fine with that too. In other words, I'm just going to rest in him and in his love and not live in fear. And whatever happens will happen. And that's what the real key is. God can take you. You can do everything you want to protect yourself from the virus. You step out of your apartment, and hit the first step and fall down the stairs and you'll die. Or you'll step out in front of a car and get hit by a car. Many other things. You got a better chance of getting struck by lightning. Last I heard, you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning, killed by lightning, than you are getting killed by the coronavirus. There's many other things that can take your life. You can just live in constant fear of being struck by lightning, constant fear of being hit by a car, constant fear of falling down the stairs, and constant fear of getting a hold of food that's been spoiled somehow, and, dying of food poisoning. There are so many things that can take your life. We focus on this coronavirus, we panic, we live in fear, and that's what the enemy wants. Because the enemy, the Bible says perfect love casts out all fear. And the enemy, he wants to put fear in you. That's why, pictures of demons look so scary and horrible. He wants to put fear in you, because once he's got fear, the opposite of faith is fear. And once he's got fear in you, he's destroyed your faith. Your job is just cling to your faith. Believe there's a God out there who loves you, who's with you 24/7, and who's right there living inside of you. And you are not going to go home until it's his time. And you just need to trust him. Let him take you home when it's your time to go. No sooner, no later. It's your time to live without fear. And that's what I think this verse is saying, is that if you follow his laws, if you do what's right, he will not enable fear to come upon you, the fear of the coronavirus to come upon you. We need to fight against that fear. We fight against it by just clinging to God, drawing close to him, and trusting God, when it's my time to go, I'm going to go. Because you're in control of my life. You're the one who's going to decide when it's my time to join you there in heaven. And you're going to keep me around as long as you want to, or as short as it is. Just living close to him. And he'll free you. Perfect love will cast out all that fear. And when he's with you 24/7, every moment of every day, and you do as unto him, everything you do as unto him, you won't live in fear.